And would you look at that? Our amazing game here, our perfect deity game with Himiko, has unlocked no less than every single available modern culture. And like, what on earth are we gonna choose? So, I've played most of these cultures already. Of course, Nepal is quite new right now, and there will be more added, I'm sure, later on. But I really wanted to go Siam. Siam has a Changbone. It is one of the few I've never been able to play before. And if you notice my first daily game, I talk about how I was mugged instead because I had assumed that when I looked at the unlock tree, that it told me that Siam was available. You can go have a look, it was in the stream. And then along comes a modern age, and I don't get the opportunity to choose it. So at least we have it now. Maybe it's been fixed. Maybe it was a bug. I don't really know. But I don't know if anyone else had that issue with Siam particularly. But we have the opportunity to play as Siam, so that's exactly what we're going to do. So, join us, and I hope you enjoyed the rest of the video. Well, here it is. He finally made it to the modern age, and it is turn 1. We will start with, of course, the Empire Legacies options. That's what I like to call them. Where we get to choose attribute points and other perks and rewards from having done well in our previous era. So, I would say Land of Opportunity is pretty decent. We can go with that. We can also go with a militaristic one. Militaristic is usually where I go with instead of expansionist. I kind of avoid the expansionist almost entirely because apart from the settlement limit, I don't really care for much of that. If I want settlers, I'll buy them most of the time, and I use the gold from the Stella to do that. For example, the first age. In the latter 2 ages, I don't really care about settlements too much. In that regard, I mean, I would definitely use it for the treasure fleet, but then, you know, it's often just going to war and taking them. I don't really care about retaining these most of the time, but 56 culture is pretty amazing. I also prefer diplomatic to culture, and some of these are, you know, preferential things. Style of play, you get to see what my style of play is. I can totally understand why some might go more culture, but with culture, it's similar to the science. I kind of like getting just a few of them because, you know, it's opportunity cost. If you want something else, you need to take from somewhere. And in both culture and science trees, I tend to only get like the production of buildings and the happiness reduction or whatever, gold reduction on the left hand side of each tree, and then kind of leave it at that. With the culture one, that was the science one. The culture one, there's one that I like, they're getting the wonder production and then bonus culture percent for each city, city with wonder in it. Those I like to get, and then the rest I kind of just, if I get them, great, whatever. All of my cities return from the previous age and get distant lands with 2 population. That is very nice, especially because, you know, if you are going to build up on your distant lands settlements, then as cities, then you know you can actually immediately tap into resources and whatnot. And speaking of resources, there's also this option. We have the wildcard, so we can go there. I guess we could go with this. Why not? And then, of course, I do really like Lyceums. We want to boost the science, especially early on, to try and get some of those important things for our win cons. You know, the rail stations and the factories all need science to be able to get to. And then with our last science point, we can take an attribute. These are bugged. I have no idea what this is. I know in my game, I changed Gadim to Kurung Thep, I believe is the capital you get for, you know, this particular civilization, Siam. So that's what you'll be seeing in the remainder of this video. We are, as those legacy points gave us, the opportunity to have more population in faraway, distant land cities, just like Cornstalk's Town. So we're making use of those buffs already, and we're going to get ourselves some Niter. As you can see now, this city has grown to full size. So only here from Specialists, which is a nice thing. I really enjoy using in this game compared to Civ 6. In Civ 6, you know, you don't really get choice of tile growth unless you buy it with gold separately. And once you've kind of grown to this sort of size, you don't really have any option whatsoever. You can't buy any further. And specialists really weren't really a thing in Civ 6. So that's certainly a tip to the hat to this game in particular. And of course, we need to make sure that we're on top of getting those very precious artifacts, because they're going to be hunted by everybody and anybody. It's very difficult. So I just straight up bought an Explorer. These are expensive units, and they rack up really quickly. They like double in price each time you get another one. Like what is the current price for one right now? 1,000 gold, yeah. Whereas most military units are like a third of that. So, you know, you pay what you get. Because you really need to get these artifacts, and they're very difficult to get, and you need 15 of them, and you need to make sure they're done early enough in the game. There are other ways, of course, later on, but let's get to it, yeah? So in the modern age, there's just so many city-states to go grab. It seems like every other part of the world that hasn't previously been occupied is now chock-a-block. We have a whole bunch, we've even taken Marrakesh already, of city-states. Let's have a look at how many city-states we are befriending. Look at that. Recently ended, and more as well coming along the way, and more to get. And we already have suzerainty of six city-states. This is all helpful thanks to our incredible influence per turn, by the way, mainly through hub towns. Because when you get a bunch of good hub towns in your various settlements, you get really nice return. And what better way than with Siam to have all those city-states than to use Pretty over here to make sure that we get +4 influence for every city-state you're suzerain of. It's almost like spend money to make money. Spend influence, get those suzerainties, and then make a ton more. We go from 106. It's not going to show the change, maybe? I don't know. Do I have to go to a city-state to show the change? So there you go. To 130. I thought they cleared that bug out. Maybe they attempted it but failed. Whereby things wouldn't update properly. But there you go. Another 24 influence per turn to potentially levy units or incorporate them. They're quite expensive. You know, not bad. So we've decided our ideology. It's going to be democracy for this particular game, and we are at war with Lafayette, ready to take down and get those points that we need for our militaristic victory. So let's get right to it, shall we? Send these 4 ships with our barrage and land target. You should be able to take this down and raise it next turn. Raising works whereby, depending on the population, you have a particular amount of turns. So this would hopefully take 7 or 8 turns because it's 7 population, and therefore it's kind of a bit of race against time. They have 3 turns to grow. Again, we would rather be able to take it down next turn before they can do that, so that we don't have to be so encumbered with their additional, you know, settlement to our settlement cap. I like going bombardment here and going down this left-hand side before picking up the engagement weather gauge perk. I understand that this one, there's a lot of ones that people like to go for because of the packing and stuff like that, but I don't really need that immediately. I prefer making sure that we have our attacks going. Our range with spotter is insane, and hopefully our damage with order will be just what we need, just what the doctor ordered for our strength. And of course, with that strength comes keeping our units healthy, so let's avoid using that one for now. Let's get another promotion going. Let's get our fleet commander over here. Let's put this triple line in place. Let's do some more damage and get some more experience on our guy. And indeed, get the first promotion on that too. So, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, when we were talking about the legacy options, I really like having these unlocked, because with these, I get a bunch of culture from each city that I've, you know, delegated a wonder to. So that switch from having all the wonders in one city being your cap, because it's high production, you want to get those to the culture legacy path, the 7 wonders, into then flipping the script in for having a bunch of cities have a wonder each, so then you can distribute districts around the wonder instead of wonders around the quarter. You get yourself quite a nice bunch of culture from that. In addition, I really like using the diplomatic tree. It's one of my most heavily used ones. When we're having struggles, especially in certain crises, these happiness ones can be really beneficial to try and avoid revolts and things like that. And then, of course, the influence is quite important for befriending all those city-states and doing all that stuff. And when you do that, you then get the natural progressive reward of generating more culture and science from them. And then getting the social policy slot can be really nice as well there. The economic one tends to be a choice between towns versus cities. And given that the real thing that matters, aside from, you know, it being cheaper to purchase everything, especially because the changes to some of the things in the modern age have made them a lot more expensive, like the rail stations and the factories and such, is to make sure that you have the resource capacity in order to satisfy those factory resources and get that economic victory turning as quickly as possible. The expansionist one I tend to avoid completely. First stage, if I am getting settlers, I'm buying them off the money I get from Stella. In subsequent ages, treasure fleets, yes, but otherwise I tend to be warring and taking places instead. Militaristic, I like going for that settlement limit. I also like the free war support. I tend to just beeline to that and kind of just sit on any of this. If I get another militaristic point, great. If I don't, it's no big deal. And science, again, I tend to just prefer making sure that I have the construction production, the happiness and the gold. Again, with the diplomatic, can help make sure that our settlements are working to their optimum and not having to worry about the settlement cap. Amidst all the chaos of the wars and the factory production and everything else, we have been assigned a task called Constitutional Monarchy to have 5 opera houses within 10 turns. We've only got 4 turns remaining, so things are getting a little dicey. But you can see we are already building quite a few opera houses in time for all this. That's 4, and our 5th is about to come from Finai. Because thankfully Finai has 80 production, so an opera house can be built in 3 turns. Plop it down here with the mountains. Seems like a good idea. And there you have it. So, you know, there is always some time, some space to account for all the other things that's going on in amongst the main objectives of our age progression. Well, our military exploits have come to an end, but you can still see we're almost there on economic, and we still have some way to go on both science and, of course, culture. But just look at our economy. We are generating almost 3,000 gold per turn. We have 6 over our settlement cap, and almost 1,000 in science and culture, which is really nice. We almost 60% of the age. That's concerning. With the time we have remaining for some of these remaining requirements. We are currently studying aerodynamics. When we get that, we'll be able to proceed with the Break Sound Barrier project, which is 2/3 of the way along the science tree, legacy path, victory path, whatever you want to call them. And of course, we do have the future civic being studied, because even though we could definitely study some of these masteries in the meantime, we have pretty much sended right through the culture tree. Things are moving fast. As we slot in the final artifact for our culture victory legacy path, I must say I am really glad to be done with culture, because honestly, out of all the problems and struggles I've had with this game, I think the culture victory and the way it's designed is the worst thing I've had to wrestle with. I don't think it's the most difficult. I'd say the most difficult things can be found in the first stage when you're still trying to build from the ground up. But in terms of just simply how miserable it is to play, it is incredibly brain dead. It's very simple, and it's also just so degenerate. Let me explain why. It's brain dead because all you're doing is like, oh, there's the thing of the map. Oh, there's over there. Oh, let's go get another artifact. Da da da, and then moving around, just constantly willy-nilly, like a mad goose chase. And it's also designed in a very punishing manner, because not only are explorers extremely expensive, so if we go here, the next one cost me over 2,000 gold to get. I don't know if I had like 3 or 4 explorers. They like start at like 500, and they like pretty much double after that. And you compare it to like literally even the aerial units, let alone any other unit, and it's just insane how much that is. And you're like forced to buy that instead of doing so many other things, buildings and whatnot. Especially in the early game, when hopefully you get them before others do. Because if you don't, you're in this rock and a hard place whereby it's almost inevitable that if you try and send the one explorer you have 7 turns one way, by the time you reach it, it's gone, and then you're constantly blue bombed. That's another aspect of it that I absolutely despise, is it's just a mechanic to design to make you upset as a player and get more and more frustrated as you know, are locked between this rock and a hard place of, do I move my 1 or 2 explorers that I already have over to a place only to miss out on it? Or do I have to, every time I see a new artifact excavation place, get a new one and chunk into my now sizable, but you know, when you're starting out, not so much economy every single time, bigger hit every single time. There are mechanics that you can do to help overcome this. I will get this mastery after I've beelined for my ideology for the military victory. And of course, hegemony was moved from the edge to the middle, which makes it more difficult. So now you have to research both of these first, to then also be able to get them through research. This means that you can get them from much more enjoyable permanent resources like natural wonders and various continents with their museums and universities to study from. But that's only like accounts for like maybe 9 of them. And then maybe a couple, if you're lucky, you get them from overbuilding. And then you have to just kind of like, you know, get lucky and splash out the cash and whatnot to get the remaining ones. Because you still won't have enough. You need 15, right? So you still won't have enough even after the natural wonders and the researches and all that. So it's just designed in such a painful way. And I really hope that of all the things, instead of just moving hegemony, the devs really try to rework that part, because I think that is the most negative experience you can have in this game. And here we are towards the end of our legacy path conquest, attempting to launch the satellite next turn. So let's press the turn here. I see that rocket low. There it goes. Fantastic. So now we need to do the crewed space flight, which will take 5 more turns. We're already doing futurist tech nonsense. We're 77% along the way. We will have all our various win cons lined up to go simultaneously. And there it is! All 4 victory legacy paths have now been on the verge of completion. We have 1 turn remaining on the crewed space flight. We have 1 turn remaining on the World's Fair Wonder. We have 1 turn remaining on the Operation Ivy project. And as you can see from this, it says activate on another player's capital to establish a World Bank office. Costs gold and influence. We have 24,000 gold, so I think we have enough. Cost scales with relationship, remaining capitals where this great person must be active are Rouen. That's it. So of course, this one is a little different to the other 3 because, you know, the other 3, you press the end turn button or you skip to the end turn and, you know, shift return. And I don't really know what happens, to be honest. I never actually let it play out like that, but I guess we'll find out. Whereas the banker one obviously actually won't happen because it's an activated finisher. You actually have to press this button to finish it. I don't know, maybe in future, if this gets popular, then you guys can vote on which kind of victory you want to see. But for now, let's just press shift return and see what happens. Operation Ivy won out. I don't know if that's because that was the first one of the 4 that I got, at least the 3, that I got to the end stage. Maybe that's why. If I ever have a game where I start on World's Fair or, you know, Cruise Spaceflight beforehand, that usually won't happen. Then I don't know if that would change things. Maybe it is in sequential order of what I did. But hey, there it is, everyone. On Deity, all 4 WinCon types. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to like the video, follow the channel, leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. Until then, all the best! Bye-bye!